Hi there, it's Winston Okatabo here, and today we'll be talking about Listview Builder and Gridview Builder. So in the last class, we actually looked at Listview and Gridview, but this time we're looking at the builders, right? So you might ask what's the difference between the Listview and the Listview Builder. So we're going to find out. So before we talk about the Listview Builder or the Gridview Builder, I want to talk about something that's very important in creating apps, which is APIs. Now, what APIs basically mean is API. The word API means Application Programming Interface, right? That's what API stands for, Application Programming Interface. Now, what this does in a nutshell is it gives developers access to some third-party resources. Gives developers access to some third-party resources. For example, let's say you're building an app that shows the current price of naira to a dollar, right? So you may not really have that figure at the back of your hand. So it could not just be naira to dollar, maybe also doing crypto and probably have different currencies. So you won't really have those figures yourself. So probably there are some there's a constant change in those figures, right? So what you can do is you can plug into an API. Now what that API will be doing is be giving you the current prices whenever you. It's more like the API is more like a URL. So whenever you call that URL, whenever you access that URL, you get the current price of these currencies. So that's an example of what APIs do. So APIs are actually very powerful because we have different APIs for different uses. So for example, if you are building let's say a fintech app, that's more like an app for a bank. I want users to be able to transfer money and create bank accounts and all of that. So all those functionalities are made possible with the use of these APIs. So you get the providers, right? So have API providers, that's company that offer these APIs. So you get to them, they'll give you the URL that you need and you start getting this data. So you get. Now what this means is that if you are building an app that uses an API, right? So there'll be lots of unknown. For example, if you want to show the list of crypto prices, so you don't really know how many crypto prices are there, except let's say you have a fixed number, let's say 5. But let's say you're just saying, okay, all the crypto price. So you could have new ones coming up or old ones coming up. So you don't really know the exact amount of those prices. Or let's say you're building an app that shows products from Amazon. Let's say Amazon has an API that allows you get the list of the products they have and show it on your own app. So you don't really know the number of items that will come back from this URL because it's going to be dynamic, right? So probably you want to show it in a list view, but you don't know how many it's going to be. From what we did the last time, you notice that when we are using our list view, the list view or grid view, it's more like we are putting it ourselves, right? So we had to like create these guys ourselves for the grid view and also for the list view, putting the details. But if we are using the APIs, we will really not know what is coming from where and how many items are going to come. So this is why one reason why you need the list view builder and the grid view builder. So in this class, we're going to use them and we're going to try to like imitate what an API call would look like. Not really API call, but like what the data from an API would look like. Then we'll see how we'll work with that. So the first thing we'll do is we'll create a new screen. We can call that screen the list view builder and the grid view builder. So let's go ahead and create that screen. So yeah, I'm going to create this new screen. Let me just call it builder screen. Start. And also you might be wondering, how do I navigate to a new screen without changing it on that main.dat? So for example, we have a screen here, which is the builders. And we want to go to want to come to this builder screen from this list view screen. Probably want to put a link or a button or something of that sort. So how do we do that? So it's very simple. I'm going to like add a button. Let me just add a button where between the list view and grid view. So after this size box 40, I'm going to add a button. So ideally we have two types of button. We have the I'm trying to get my suggestions. So we have the elevated button and the outline button, right? So just type this FEL, so you see this FEL BTN, so you select it, or you can write the code like so. And don't forget to add your comma at the end of this widget. So basically this is an elevated button and it's just a button, right? So it's clickable and you can click it to go to the next screen. So I'm not going to style it for now. I'll just add the button there because we're still going to look at it. But for now, I'm using that button because it has a property which is called onPressed. Now onPressed basically means when I press this button, what do I want to happen when I press this button? So ideally, basically, we want to move to the next screen with press this button. So how do we do that? So onPressed, we'll call this function navigator. So navigator.push. Now that's steps guys. So say material page route. This code is a bit long when you look at it. It's a bit long when you look at it. So I'm moving to the next screen, which will be what's the name of that screen? Builder screen. Yeah. So this is what the code looks like to move to the next page. So you type navigator.push context, then the next property which is material page routes, which accepts under builder and all of that stuff. Right, so it's kind of like a lot if you look at it too much, but this is what it looks like in a nutshell. So with this now, if I save and when I click on that button, I'm going to move to the next page. So come up. So now when you move to the next page, you also have the ability to go back to the previous page, right? Because now we are pushing, so we can go back to the previous page. That guy automatically comes up. So let's move on to that screen. So I'm back to my builder screen. I just hold Control, help me, and then click on this guy. So it's open to the screen immediately. So yeah, we have this guy here, and we really want to show the builders. So I'm going to use a single child explosion. I don't want you to confuse me. So single child exposure, accept the child of column. Right, so we have the column here. So we're going to be putting the two builders, which is the Listview builder and the Gridview builder. So let me just go ahead and let's start with the Listview builder. So LISV B. So this option, Listview builder, Listview B. So yeah, now you'll see the benefit of using this builder. So I'm going to do the same thing I did in the other one, but it's going to look different. So I'm going to have a list style also. Now my list style will have a leading, which will be a circle avatar. That has a child of an icon. The icon is icons.person. And this icons person. Okay, so leading, then we'll have a title, which will be a text bearing the name as well. Right, so let me just leave it at this for now. So yeah, one other thing also, so since we are trying to, I'm using the Chrome browser for my emulator, right? I normally have an issue. Okay, we've gone to that error again. That was the shrink wrap. So whenever I have that error, just add the shrink wrap here. So now the issue I have when I use the Chrome as my emulator is that whenever I save, it goes back to the beginning, right? So I don't get this screen immediately. So for that, I'll just change my home screen on the main.dat to the screen, so it won't take time to load much. So I just change here to the builder screen. So that way, once I save, it's still on the same page. Yeah. So yeah, so we have the builder, and for now, you want to really notice that okay, it's not doing anything much, right? Now, if I want to actually make it look more nice, if I want to show the power of it, there's this property here called item count. If I set my item count to 10, Now this is where the magic comes in. So once my item count becomes 10, I have 10 of those guys. So to make it more nice, I can wrap with a widget and a card widget that has an elevation of 3. Alright. And let me say it has a margin of edge insets. Edge insets only. I'll say button like 2. Okay. And when it comes up, you see more like you can have lots of these guys with just one design. Alright. And for me, I think this is really good. For me to be able to do it is really good. Because like I told you earlier, if we are calling an API, we can easily just attach it to a builder. Now attaching it to a builder means that whatever data that is coming from the API automatically sync with the Listview builder. So let's try to mimic the API stuff, right? So let's assume it's coming from an API. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable. Remember in the first class we started talking about variables, and we also talked about maps and arrays. So I'm going to create a list of map. Now, a map, because these guys, I'm just going to put names of users. I know basically users, so I'll need them to have a name and an email, right? So each user will have a name and an email. That's why it's going to be a map. So how do I do this? Very simple. I'll put it before this override of build. I'm going to put it here. What will I call it? So I'll choose a list of dynamic. I won't specify what type. It's just going to be a list of dynamic to save time. So I'll call this users. So since it's a list, I'm going to have this. And ideally it's a list of maps. So my maps basically have a name, which will be form for this guy. And let me see, it also has an email, which will be like paul@email.com. Right, so at the end I put a guy here. So I'm going to have more of these guys because I want more users. So I'll copy this guy, paste him again, change it to Andron, and the email will be Andron. Get some. Add one more time. I know my constant here is showing an error. My constant anymore. And add Sylvester. Why do I choose Sylvester? My name is Red. It's longer head than name. So yeah. So I just have 3 names now, right? So what I'm saying is, let's imagine this is what's coming from an API. Probably you are calling an API to get list of people or something, wherever these guys represent, right? So this is how it's going to come basically. So if you call an API, it's going to come something like this format, right? So now how do we now use this? So if it's coming from an API, basically data that comes from the API, we write the code and store it in a variable so we can use it. So that, remember, variables store data. So data coming from the API, we store it in a variable, so that way we can reuse it on this page. Now, using it on this page, our item count will no longer be 10, and I'm not just going to say my item count is 3, even if I am saying here that is 3. But remember, this thing we are imagining is coming from an API, right? So we do not really know the exact amount. So what do we do now? We will say users dot length. Now the list data type, right, has a property called length. So users dot length. So if you have a list, you call the name of that list dot length. It gives the number of items inside. So in this case, number of items now will be 3. Alright, so if I save this again, I will only notice I have 3 Maxwell. Well, now this is not the name here, so I'd want this name to actually reflect whatever name that is here. So how do I do that? Very simple. At this point here, the item builder. So the item builder basically acts like a loop. Now when I say loop just means something that iterates, right? It just runs over. So the item builder, since I have 3, it's just going to run for 3 times, and each of those times it runs, this index will be changing. And if you go back to like the 2nd or 3rd video, I talked about accessing different items in a list. So the index basically is all used in accessing items in a list. The first item has an index of 0, second item has an index of 1, just like that. So ideally here, this guy Paul, his index is 0, his index is 1, his index is 2. So we know that this index now will be changing there's a lot of technical stuff there. But how you can get those guys, you can come here and say, okay, let me just use the dynamic to avoid error. So user will be equal to users index, right? So now this index basically, like I told you, it's going to change for the number of items you have. So we have 5 items to be moving from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop at 4 because index starts counting from 0. So basically this index will change multiple times, and when it's changing, give us a whole lot of things that we can do with it. For example, I can then come here and say this should carry the username, right? So this name here being this property, this map, right? So we have name here. So remember, I also have email. So let's just save this and see. So saving this will give us the 3 names. That's Paul, Andrew, and Sylvester. And I can also say subtitle should be a text. Should be a text. And this text should also be user email. So you notice how you put double quotes outside and single quotes inside, right? So if you get a bit confused, just go back to the video where we talked about maps and lists, so you further understand why we are calling user email like this, right? And yeah, and this part is the part that maybe may confuse you, right? So the index here changes for all the users. So as it changes, if you have to, it will be 0, 1, 2, 3. So when it iterates 0, it's basically referring to the first guy, just like that. So until it's done with the list, and as it's iterating over each of them, we are returning a card and showing this detail in it. So it's a loop. Yeah, so that's how we were able to get this beautiful design using Listview builder. Now the last one, which is the Gridview builder, the size box here, give it a height of like 30 because I need space. Gridview builder. So yeah, I use the shortcut for Gridview, so it gives me this. Yeah, so ideally we mainly use the builders. We don't just use Listview or Gridview. We use Listview builder or Gridview builder because it's more, for me it's better. Depends on what you're trying to achieve though. So yeah, it comes with cross-axis count and also the item count. So similar to what I did there, the item count here I'll call users.length. Right, then this guy here, what I want to return, I'll just put a container, right, that will have a child. Now the child is going to be a center widget, and the center widget is the text, and the text is going to be, sorry, center will have a child of text, not just text. Let me just say hey. So see, then yeah, don't forget to set your shrink wrap. So remember, your properties can be anywhere, but as long as it's there. So I'm dropping my shrink wrap after the item count. So we'll quickly save this, and voila, we see this guy. I'll just add a column, columns of purple. Yeah, don't forget, if you need spacing in between them, you can also add the, what's that guy called now, the cross-axis spacing and main axis spacing, so you probably will actually see it clearly, right? So add it here, main axis spacing 20, cross-axis spacing also 20. Yeah, so this works. That will give it some spacing. Then lastly, my user. So I'll say dynamic user is equal to users and the index. So by doing this, I have a variable here called user that I can access here and save this. You can say this should be user. So yeah, that's what we have. You can make the color white. That's not the text. So the main thing here, aside the variable for getting each of the user, I also introduce this widget here. So this center widget will basically bring the items to the center of that particular widget site and close them. And sometimes by default it might come to the center, sometimes it may not come to the center. So let me remove this guy. But if you have any case where you want to centralize the items, right? So you can use the center widgets and to try bring him to the center. I'm trying to remove him by this option. Option is not coming up again. Okay, remove this widget. So now without that center widget, you notice it's coming to the top left corner. So with the center widget will bring it to the center of the container. That's the container that's actually unboxing it in. So yeah, so this is just a simple implementation of the Listview builder and the Gridview builder, and trying to like work with list of maps, right? So you see why variables are important, why maps lists are also important, because building an actual app will require you working with data, and working with data will require storing that data. Storing that data implies working with variables. Working with variables implies knowing the data types that fit each kind of data. So you see how all these guys are intertwined. So in the next video, I'll actually be talking about forms. Right, that is, it's basically taking input from users. So we're looking at how we can design these forms, something like the registration form, the login form, and all those kind of amazing forms. And also see how to like style the button properly, right? So see you in the next class where we'll talk about forms, and bye for now.